Hey guys, good morning. Welcome to the Family First Life Get to 20K call. My name is Stephen Yee. Today, I'm actually very blessed to have uh, SVP of FFL Aspire, Jessica Powers, and she's a big time producer. So we're going to pick her brain and see what she does with her group and herself to get brand new agents in the field to write 20K right away. So Jessica, are you there?
I am. Thank you. Hi,
How are you?
fantastic. Thanks for inviting me on here. I was very excited.
So can you kind of tell us your story about how you got started with Family First Life? Because you were in insurance for a little bit before here, right? So when you got a chance to take a look at the company, you're almost like jaded in a
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, absolutely. So, kind of funny story is, I did start with another company briefly. It's like kind of like my practice company. All the things that we talk about that are like the reasons why people are so jaded, that's exactly where I came from. But I actually was just dabbling in it. I was full time in healthcare field. I was working as a surgical tech. I specialized in labor and delivery, and then made my way over to the main OR. And so I was, assisting in all these like spines and hips and knee surgeries and everything. And to be honest, I was just like the hardest working person in the room, the most underpaid. And I just was really frustrated because everybody was so grumpy. I worked with overworked people that were tired, that had high stress. And I just kind of felt like, is this it? Like, is this really what I'm doing? Like, did I go to school to do this? And
Right.
my husband Ken, who is my partner in crime in all this, is kind of like the silent person behind the curtain. And he came across the insurance industry, and he was so excited about it. Again, this was a different company, but he was so excited about it because a lot of companies sell the big dream, right? Oh, the cars and the lifestyle and all this, and you get so excited about it. But then, so he was really excited. I was, being a good wife and kind of getting on board. We started to do that, but there were so many red flags for me. I was like, why do I have to go to an office on a Saturday and listen to like rah rah? Like, shouldn't I be out there training? Shouldn't I know how to write an e-app? Shouldn't I be making more? Like, I don't understand how this works. So I actually, the funny thing is, it caused a lot of problems. I quit. I was like, nope, you can't make any money in insurance. This is garbage. And he was like still hanging on to it.
Right.
So, I told him, I'm like, give me, I was starting to do my research, right? I'm like, give me a company that's got leads, that's got high comp, that gives me training, that I don't have to go to an office for like rah rah, that like I can just go to work. Like, that's what I want. If we're going to do this, give me that.
Right.
And, based off of one of our friends that had left, it was like, here's FFL, and most people would be like, that maybe haven't been in the industry before, but like, wow, this is so great. But I was like, all right, what's the catch? What's the
Right.
you know so to oblige my husband, I went to the first convention, right? Our first convention in so it was actually 3 years ago, but it three conventions ago, so 2019's 2018's convention, 2019's
Right.
convention. And I was so skeptical, seriously. See, I was like, oh, this isn't going to work. I'm just going to go. I'm going to prove him wrong. This is not, I was working my job, and I started so like arms crossed. I don't want to be here sitting back. And like, as the days went on, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, I think
Right.
this guy can do this. I can do this. This girl can do, I could do this. Like, I got really into that. Like, why not me? And so I went home and I quit my job. Like, straight up just went home the next day, drove through a snowstorm when everybody was calling out of work so I could go and put my notice in and quit my job. So
Wow.
yeah.
So like, all right, how was that transition from doing that when you quit your job to getting into the field immediately? I mean, you almost have to make it work. There is no plan B, right?
You would think, but I totally went through the whole thing because I've always been in like, a W-2 employee. I'd always worked for, somebody else. Somebody else gave me a schedule. I was like the employee that was like, even though I had a lot of, like, I feel like I've got a lot of great qualities, I was always like, well, if I can do this and get paid the same if I do this, like, I'll probably just do this. So when I got to, even though I'd been to convention and I heard all the things, what to do, what not to do, I did everything that they tell you not to do. I didn't protect my schedule. I didn't dial because I didn't like the phones. And, I would try to buy the least amount of leads possible. So I think my first month I did, maybe $4,000. And this was like, I was actually like less money than I made when I was working at the hospital because of leads
Right.
and everything. And then, shortly after that, my mom got diagnosed with cancer. And that really knocked my socks off. That was a really, really rough time for me. I had never been at such a low point. because I had just lost my grandpa 2 years before to the same cancer. And so that really hit me hard. So at a time when I was like supposed to be going all in, this is my life-changing moment. I quit my job. I was found myself in this really big hole. And so the first month I did maybe 4,000. The next month I don't really think I did anything at all. And I had to really like take a look at it, and I had to really evaluate what was going on. And from there, Ken is such my numbers guy. My third month in, I think I did between like maybe 32,000, I think is what I
Wow.
did, 32,000 my third month in. And it wasn't because I lacked the skill or anything like that. I just wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing, you
Right.
know, like I just wasn't taking the right actions. I wasn't doing the FFL schedule. I was just, half like making it a hobby, not really, and then expecting to have all these results. I just wasn't doing enough.
Right.
I
So
hope I,
for the brand new agent, like let's say you were to hire us or some of the agents that we have on the call right now, and they said, Jessica, what did you do differently? Like you said, you went from 40 to 32. You said the dial times and protecting all that and running. Like how many appointments did you run? How much were you spending on leads weekly? Like what were the nitty gritty numbers of what you were actually doing?
yeah. So for me, it was being relentless on my uh like my standards. I had to have 30 appointments a week. And I know everybody says that, but it's like if you have the appropriate lead flow and you're not confused by that, like
Mhm.
there's no reason that you can't get that.
Right.
So it's the people, what I found is, so I didn't like the phones at all. I really didn't like them. The first time when somebody like yelled at me, like after my first dial day, I cried like that. I was that person that I cried. Now,
Right.
and I'd be like, they'd be like, oh, can you call me back? I'm like, oh, perfect. When do you want me to call you back? And I'd be
Right.
like, this person wants me to call me back at 5. Like, that's my person. And then surprise, they don't answer, you
Right.
know? So I just learned to love the process of the phones. And I learned that the phones, like if I wanted to have the success that everybody did, that I had to just accept that the phones were the majority of the business, and I could either fight it or I could just become, excuse my language, like badass at the phones, because then it wouldn't matter. Like, I don't
Right.
care. I already expect the objections. Like, perfect. You're not interested? Perfect. I expected you to say that. Like, it
Right.
doesn't throw me off anymore. So the quicker I can get to my appointments. So again, I bought the leads. I was religious there wasn't a ton of the internet leads like there were now when I started. So my main source was Final Expense. So like at the time with Final Expense, at the minimum, I'd be doing between with 30 each dial session. But realistically, I was having at least, because I wouldn't get them before, it was like 50, 60 each time of Final Expense leads. Now it's internet leads. I'm like 80 to 100 leads every time I sit down a dial, because I already have the leads before, because I'm getting that flow through. It's the 30 appointments. Sometimes I like to do more. I book them every hour. I don't care how far away I am. I don't care anything. I ask for a lot of flexibility, and I book them every hour because all I'm looking for is numbers. I
Right.
want 8 to 10 appointments in my day. I know that I have to dial all day. I stopped booking my an appointment, maybe do my hair or things like that on dial days. Like dial days are my dial days. I do not do appointments. I do not do anything else on my dial days.
Right. So you're really good at protecting your schedule.
Yeah, you have to be. And this is coming from somebody who's like total a gypsy when it comes to schedule. I was like, ooh, schedule? What? Like, you want me to do that? No, I
Right.
hated that. But it was like the more I put on my schedule and more I structured myself, the more I felt like I actually had control over my life.
Right. And that's what I've always told like some of the agents that we work with, right? Like, my mentor told me when I was young, he was like, Steven, they make planners for successful people. Like
Right.
they made it for someone to use. They didn't just make it to put it at Staples or Office Depot, right? And I was like, I get it, but like, what do you want me to do? He goes, if you don't control your schedule and you just lead everything to a whim, you will not achieve anything because you're just going through and going about it. He was like, but if you can literally schedule your day in, like from 5 to 6, I'm doing this, from 6 to 7, I'm doing this. He goes, the first 3, 4 hours of your day, you'll do more than most people do an entire day. And
Yeah.
once I started getting a planner and putting things into the planner, like locking down dial days, like, in the morning from like 7:30 to 11:30, and then having a little bit of lunch, speak to some agents, jump on Zoom calls, and then 4:30 to 8:30, hit the dial slot again. It's like once you were very intentional, it's like all of a sudden the results came and we were kind of like, duh, it was supposed to come, So
We fight it completely. And
right.
say one of the big things for me, which I thought, so I was, healthcare. So I worked swing shifts. So like I would work 12-hour shifts. Sometimes I'd work days, sometimes I would work nights. So I'd work from like 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Sometimes I did 7 p.m. And so I'm like just naturally a night owl. So I had a really hard time because I could stay up really late, but I'd want to sleep late. And so this has been a really big shift for me, was getting up early. And I was the type of person who was like, oh my gosh, like if I get up before 8 o'clock, like I'm winning today. Five now, which is like, I know some people get up even earlier, but 5 a.m. for me, I'm like, it's like 10 and I'm like, oh my God, like how much did I get done today? It's
Right.
crazy. I'm like trying to call people at like 6 a.m. and everyone's sleeping. I'm like, why are you sleeping?
That's funny. So let's go into one last thing I want to dive into about the phone. You said you didn't like the phone. I don't think anybody does. I think Dominique Rogers is the best dialer we have in the company. And even he hates the phones, right? So how long did it take for you to get your phone skill, the ability to get comfortable on the phone where, it didn't hurt as much anymore when people were giving you objections? Because, in the beginning you make a phone call and then like someone tells you no, or they cuss you out and you're like, oh, my heart hurts. How long did it take for you to go, it's just a numbers game, I'm going to go right through that next number?
Honestly, I think it took a little while, but I think it wasn't because of the fact that it needed to take a while. I just wasn't dialing enough in my days. Like I would dial, like being totally transparent. Like maybe I would dial like 50 dials, like, yeah, my dial day, I did 50 dials or something
Right.
like that. And it wasn't until I was looking at like Brad Allen, when Brad Allen started posting his numbers. I'm like, what? He dialed 300 dials? Like that's what you're supposed to do? So
Right.
I just had to get the right expectation. Now
Right.
it's like 300 is like, I tell my agents, like your goal is 350 dials. Now with this phone burner app, like the game is on, like,
Right.
like between 300 to 500 dials a day, you should be getting. And if
Easy.
you got less than that, then you're not dialing. So I think it's just that it's the, how many no's, right? Like everyone's how it focuses on the yeses. Like I don't focus on my yeses anymore. I changed my mindset on it. It's like, if I want to get my 30 appointments, then I know that I need to get like 50 people to tell me no.
Right.
Like I don't care about that. And
Right.
then, to be honest, like I used to think like, oh, I need to have all these scripts. I have one script and it's, very simple. And then I know like my top key objections. Like there's not like that many objections that people are going to throw at me. So I'm not surprised. I don't care when someone tells me they're not interested, I'm not care. I'll be perfect,
Right.
like I don't, and again, it's the whole, any objection, my three things I always do is agree, answer, ask to any
Right.
objection. I agree with them, I answer, and then I ask a question.
Right.
So
So can you, you said that you have one phone script for everything. And I'm with you, by the way. Like, I don't believe in a phone script at all. I like how they call it a phone script, but I'm like, the only thing that changes is the opening line where I'm calling from. If I'm calling from mortgage protection, it's Jessica. Hey, Jessica, this is Steven. I'm getting back to you about the form you sent back in to pay off your mortgage in case of a death or disability, right? If it's final expense, I'm like, hey, Jessica, this is Steven. I'm getting back to you about the form you sent in to help pay for funeral and burial expenses. Like the only thing that changes is the opening line. Everything else is verifying information and all that stuff. So, can you kind of talk about, you said there's only a few objections that you really get. What are your like top 2 or 3 objections you get on the phone?
I'm not interested.
Okay. How do you overcome that one?
Perfect. I completely understand. Most people that tell me that they're not interested is because they don't think they'll qualify. They think it's too expensive, or perhaps they just got frustrated because they've been bombarded by telemarketers. Which one is it for you?
Right.
And then I can narrow it out. Oh, telemarketers. Oh my gosh, I completely understand. I know they're making my job really hard. Like I agree, right? But again, I'm actually local to the area. I'm not a telemarketer. I do run here locally for the area. I just was trying to reach out to you because I know this is important to you and I know that it's frustrating. Real quickly, let me just confirm the information that you put down here so I can help you.
Right.
What are the other ones? Take me off of your list. That's a big one too. Like same with that. I'm not interested. Take perfect. I actually don't have, perfect, Sam. I actually don't have a list. I'm not a telemarketer. I do run here locally for Anacortes as an underwriter. You had submitted a request that came to my office since I'm local to the area that you were looking for help with life insurance. At the time when you submitted the request, were you looking for help with final expenses, mortgage protection, or to leave a legacy behind?
Right.
So, it it doesn't really, you were looking for, because especially too, because I feel like with the internet leads, when I hear people say, this is just my personal opinion, right? So when I hear someone says you were looking for information on life insurance versus you were looking for help with life insurance when you submitted your request, you're looking for help with final expenses, mortgage protection, or to leave a legacy behind.
Right.
Now it opens up. It's like, oh, right. I was looking for this. That's just been my experience. And I love internet leads. And
Right.
I love aged internet leads. Everybody gets upset if I aged leads. I love them.
Can you talk about why?
Well, the reason why I like them is because they're not getting called a bunch anymore. Like, so a lot of times there's a couple things that happen. One, people got insurance, but they got a graded policy and they have no idea that they got a graded policy, right? So I want to go back to that one too, of I already got it taken care of. I've already got it taken care of objection. So they've either already got it, and it's usually either through the mail or through TV or something like that. And so they're in a graded policy. Easy, I can help them. They've been denied. Easy, I can help them. They are frustrated because somebody told them they didn't qualify. We can help them.
Right.
Or they thought they got a too expensive quote. Perfect, I can help you. Or I was frustrated because they were frustrated at the time because they were getting bombarded by people because, there's leads that come in for wherever. Now they're not getting the calls anymore. Right. I'm going to get Bob to answer the phone. And he is not going to be as angry saying, take me off of your list. And I've got, I can't tell you how many like $3 leads I purchased, and I've been able to make $2,000 through $1,500, $1,000, $800 on this one. And this is a family, right? I look at the family. This is a family that got overwhelmed. They were not served and they need our help. So I'm not about that.
And see, that's the thing, Jessica, for us that, we see is, some people are Andrew Taylor says there's no such thing as an exclusive internet life lead because they're always going out and filling more information. They think it goes to the same person, but in actuality, lead one goes to us, lead two goes to you, lead three goes to the next person. And we're all calling. They're like, well, take me off your list. And we're like, well, you filled it out, right? I love how you say it that way because your mindset is, well, if I push this out to, let's just say a $3 lead, the cost of the lead is a lot lower. I can get more at once. And I'm just making up in numbers what I lack in skill. So brand new agents, we usually say, when we hire agents in our side, we usually say, you either have a lot of money or you have a lot of time. You have a lot of money, then you can buy the A leads and the more expensive stuff. So like you're on the phone a lot less. But if you don't have a lot of money and you have a lot of time, like you said, just get a lot of, 1 month, 3 month old instant internet life leads, throw them in the CRM, and you'll be on the phone for 12 hours. But you'll also set 15 appointments, and those 15 appointments will yield you easily $3-4 in commissions.
You will, because also you think about they're not getting called also by a lot of other people being like, and I'm saying I've got an appointment, and they're like, well, let me come too, right? Like you don't have as much competition. Right. And honestly, the people that say I've got it already taken care of, perfect. I assume that you did. Most people submit multiple requests to make sure they get the most coverage at the most affordable rate for their family.
Right.
I know you qualify. It'll take me about 5 minutes. I'll go over this, see if we can improve your situation.
Right.
Like I don't care that they have it. Like I'm like, perfect. I'm confident. I can get you something better. And why wouldn't you? If I already, and instead of me being like, well, I just got your request, or why did you, oh, well, what do you have? Like, I don't care what they have. I just want the appointment because more times than not, I'm gonna be able to help them or get them more coverage.
Right.
Or find opportunities, and people respect that when you're like, well, you're perfectly fine. Like if it's a husband and wife, it's like, you keep your policy, don't touch it. But you, on the other hand, we need to fix that.
Right. Gotcha. So great information about the phones. Now let's say we're getting into the home, right? You go in the field, you're running your 8 to 10 appointments a day, every hour on the hour, regardless of where the next appointment is, even if it takes you 45 minutes to get there, right? You get in the home. What's your in-home structure like? What do you do? I mean, if they say, hey, can you sit over here, which is the couch? Like, how do you get them away from that and go to the kitchen counter or the table? Like, what do you do to establish credibility and dominance in the home?
Yeah. Oh, I think that's good. So that's so important. Because if you are not taking control in the home, like everyone's like, oh, this is their house. Like, yeah, but it's my appointment, right? Like I'm here. I have an insurance license. Like, I'm here to help you. I wouldn't be thinking that somebody can do better if I didn't know, have that credibility, right? That's my help. So before COVID, like it's a little bit different now with COVID, just because I try to respect people's personal space. So like when I, knock on the door, I'd always like keep the screen door open, like I'm about to like come in the door. But when you come in, they're like, oh, you can sit on the couch. I'm like, you know what? I actually have a couple things I want to show you. So I really could use the table. And I will like move stuff over on their table too. Like I don't say, is it okay? I'm like, here, I'll help you. I'll just slide some stuff over. If they
Right.
make a comment about, oh, my house is dirty, the table's dirty, like I'm just like, oh, don't even worry about it. Like I've got a dog, I've got kids. Even if you don't, like it's like, oh, don't worry, I got a cat. Or what's
Playing it.
like I'm just like, I don't care. I'm like, I'm not here to care about your house. I'm just here to help you, So I sit down and I don't really spend a lot of time building rapport. I do a little bit, but it'll be something simple, like, oh my gosh, I like that picture, or how long have you lived here? That's always my go-to is like, how long have you lived here for? I ask a question about something that I see, and then I go, okay, Stephen, before I get started, I just want to let you know who I am, because you're probably thinking like, oh, great. I just let somebody come over and they're going to sit here for an hour and a half and try to sell me on something. That's not what this is. So you can just take just take a breath. Like I'm here to help you. I'll be here as long as I need to help you. Okay. And that actually, I see a lot of times people will like laugh or they'll be like, oh yeah, okay.
Right.
That's what they're thinking, right? They're like, okay, this person, I've seen like where I turn around, the wife's like, like,
Right.
and I'm like, do you need me to leave? And she's like, no, because it's just, we are here, we're in control. So I just tell people I like to lay it out in the beginning, very straightforward, right? So just so you know who I am. My name is Jessica. Like I mentioned, I run here locally for the area. Here's my state license. I work very hard for my license. This is what gives me the ability to talk to you about this. Okay. I'm actually a broker as well. So with this license, I took a little bit more time to become a broker because I want to make sure that I have the best carriers, the best companies that we can go through. So I have about 17 that I go through. They're all A-rated through AM Best. They've been around for a very long time. They have a phenomenal track record with paying out their death claims. And, they have a really good financial backing. Because when I look at companies, it's not just who's the cheapest, it's who's going to be the best for your family, and who's going to do what we need it to do. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay, perfect. So what I'm going to do is this. It's going to be super simple. I'm going to spend a couple minutes. I'm just going to ask you a few health questions, a few financial questions. Then we're going to figure out what you qualify for. Once we figure that out together, remember, I'm just the underwriter. I don't actually do the approvals, right? I would be like Oprah, just like giving it to everybody. So I don't do that. So once we figure that out and we're like, yes, this is the one we want, great. That's when I'm going to ask you, hey, grab me your ID, make sure you have your beneficiary information, your banking information. They will need a routing and account number. So we're going to want to make sure we have that. Then I'm going to submit a request to the insurance company. If they say no, that's okay. We'll just go to a different insurance company. It's not a big deal. If they say yes, which is what we want, then you're secured for your insurability. So that's when we'll get the approval, your first payment will come out, your policy will get mailed to you. Now we have that so we can, make adjustments, things like that.
Right.
My job is just to help you get from that point. Now, if you've been shopping around, that's good. I want you to do that. That's what we're doing here for you. So that way you don't feel like you need to look around anymore, because I know it's confusing. And there's a lot of things out there, a lot of calls, a lot of things on TV. Things on TV are garbage. Things online are garbage. You'd never want to go through the phone with somebody. You want to do it in person. That's why I'm here. Okay. Can I continue?
Right. That's very good.
That's everything that I do. I do that every time. So they know I'm going to ask. So that way I don't ever get any pushback, anything,
Right. So you go through financial inventory, and let's just say you're brand new, like this is your first week in the business. You get the medications, you get the hospitalizations, the surgeries, whatever it is. If you didn't know how to underwrite because you're new, what are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm reaching out to my person. So it's always important, I think, to have 2 or 3 people that you can reach out to, because sometimes you don't want to have just one person, because people have, things going on. Maybe they're in an appointment, life, things like that. So it's always good to have a reference of a couple people, plus whatever communication tool, if you use Slack or Telegram or not, that way you have a place to go or a phone number. So when I get the information, what I'll say to my client is, okay, perfect. Have a really good, I know where I want to go, but we always reach out for a second opinion to make sure that we're putting you in the best situation possible. So I'm going to reach out to my senior underwriter, get a second opinion before we go forward. So I haven't talked about what type of coverage. I haven't talked about anything. And I don't ask people, what do you want? Because they might not qualify for it. I just find out, I'm getting the information. Then I'm going to reach out like, Hi, Stephen. This is Jessica. I'm sitting down with Mary. She's 65 years old. We're here for final expenses. Her son is going to be the beneficiary. She wants to be cremated, would like to leave some money behind if she can. She's on Social Security. She makes about $1,500 a month. She gets some state assistance, some food stamps. She's on HUD housing. She's able to a little bit of money into savings each month. She had a heart attack 3 years ago. She's taking lisinopril. She has diabetes, no complications. She's on metformin. And she got stints 3 years ago, but no congestive heart failure or anything like that. And then so like say I didn't owe anything, right? And so you're like, okay, well, go Americo, Eagle Premier, you could show her like 7,000, 10,000, and 15,000. And I had no idea. Perfect. That's exactly what I was thinking. Great.
Right.
I'm glad to know. Cause like, I just want that validation. And I'll be like, and if I don't know something, I'll be like, can you remind me really quickly? Is there anything else that includes? Is that too intermediate? Like, can you remind me really quickly? Is
Right.
a good, not like, I'm not sure, or, oh, okay, good. I didn't know what I was doing. You want to express that confidence. Perfect. That's exactly what I was thinking. Right. And then I got the phone. Great. I'm so glad that I reached out. I always like to reach out to him. We're on the same page, which is perfect. That gives us the go ahead. Let me just pull up your options for you really quickly.
Right. And I see, Jessica, one of the things that is very unfortunate because you have agents that have egos, right? And for me, it's like, we've always heard this being said, is like, you can have a big ego or a big paycheck. I had an agent the other day. She ran like 6 appointments on a travel trip out of state. It wasn't very far, but she, I didn't even know she had the appointments, which is fine. You want independent agents. And she wrote 6 policies for 10 grand. Right. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. And when I started looking at the approved issue business report, like nothing was there, nothing was there, nothing was there. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. So I ended up giving her a call and I was like, hey, you had that travel trip the other day that you told me you ran, because she called me after the trip. And I was like, where did you place that premium and what happened? Because I haven't seen any of it. And she said they all got declined. And I was like, okay, so what happened in your first appointment? She goes, yeah, the gentleman had cancer like, 3 years ago, and I put him through HMS and they didn't take him. I was like, I could have told you that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, every app was like that. Every app. And I'm like, if you would have just called, I would have been able to tell you to pivot to this company or carrier or whatever it is. And you would have been able to have something. And it's like, we see so many agents that want to know it all. And what actually happens is they don't just hurt themselves or the upline, because the upline doesn't care. They're not receiving the phone call. The person they hurt the most is the client.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I know. I completely understand. I kind of was one of those people in the very beginning, and like I didn't call as much, and I kept placing everybody in like AIG. And it was like,
Me too.
and first and foremost, I had clients that got put in AIG. I was able to go back later, but like that were in a 2-year graded policy unnecessarily. And then 2, my commissions were like a quarter of what they could have been.
Right.
And honestly, my rule of thumb is more than just calling for in-home help. It's also, I have my agents call if they're getting the I need to think about it. Because if they're getting the I need to think about it or things like that, I want them to call, so that, because they've already established that, perfect. Okay, great. Let me just see if we're missing something. Let me reach out to my senior underwriter one more time. And then that way, even like put it on speakerphone and help, because there might be additional questions that we're not thinking about, or saying, Stephen, you actually do have to think about it. I don't even know if they're going to put coverage in place for you. And there's been so many times where we think we're going to get coverage and we won't. And so what we need to do is pick something that is affordable to you, that does what you're looking for, and make sure that we get that approval in place for you.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah. Cause one thing that I learned from Dom recently, and we were just talking, he was like, so many agents call their uplines just for underwriting questions. He was like, that's almost foolish. He's like, they can actually Google the answer if they wanted to. He goes, what the upline's job is to help them close the deal. Like, you should teach your team how to call you to overcome objections while in the home. And I was like, that's actually smart. Like we had a client the other day that senior mortgage, and for folks like you and I, senior mortgage is easy, but for a brand new agent, it doesn't make any sense when you're 73 with a $400,000 mortgage, and then it's also the worst when you have a brand new agent calls you and they go, hey Jessica, this is Steven, I'm sitting with Bob and Mary, and they're 73, 74, and they have a $400,000 mortgage and they want $400,000 worth of insurance. And I'm like,
Like,
where did you set that expectation for them, you know? So, but okay, cool. Anything in your in-home presentation that you do, like little tricks or tips or, little one percenters that you think brand new agents don't do, or anything that you used to do that you don't do anymore? That's the other piece too. It's less is more sometimes when you're a top producer, because when you run every hour on the hour, you don't have time.
yeah. So in home. So one thing for me when I get there, if I'm running, I just want to put this, it's not necessarily in home, but it applies to it, is if I'm running an hour late, I do not call my appointment. And when I show up, I really don't necessarily fully apologize. I just tell them, thank you for allowing me flexibility. The family ahead of you had a lot of questions and you really needed a lot of help.
Right.
And I just go right into it.
Right.
Like, I don't go, is it still okay? Can we do that?
Right.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm running late. Like, I just show up and I said, thank you so much for the flexibility. I really appreciate it.
Right.
And I just go into it. So one, I think for me too, is I really used to let myself leave with I need to think about it. I'll call you in a couple days. And when I was new, that was a big thing for me. I had a ton of like quote unquote follow-up people that I would have to like come back out to or call to think about it. And that, I think that right there is the biggest thing. Like, I was able to realize, like, I'm not getting back in there. Like, they're telling me that I need to think about it. No, they don't need to think about it. I just didn't do a good job. I need to do a better job. Right. So I'll say, like, usually if I got a no, like, I would let somebody tell me no. And then like that, I would leave. Now it's like, they have to tell me no, like 6 times and almost like be kicking me out and like getting awkward now for me to leave.
Right.
I've had a couple times where I've said certain things to people and I was like, I'm about to get like screamed at or not. And like majority of the time I'm getting an apology. Have I been yelled at? Have I been like forced out of a house? Sure, I have. I don't care though. Cause I did everything I could to help that family. I've been on the other side. So here's when I'll tell you when it really took a big hit for me. I got a call from a girl and she was really upset. She was crying and her grandpa died. And she had my card. And he died. And he was one of the guys that was my think about it.
Oh.
Yeah. And I was like, dang, like and I remembered who he was too. And it was like, I knew that I didn't do a good enough job. And that really stuck with me. So now I remember those things, like the people that I've had it happen where I've been on this weird streak where I keep getting all these death claims. And I can think of, out of the 4 of them, 2 of them have been, and usually for me, it's like the older gentlemen are harder for me. They're usually a little bit more grumpy. I don't really care. And out of those 4, 2 of my death claims were from those type of gentlemen that were like, tried to cancel the policies, tried to cancel the appointments,
Right.
maybe probably left me a voicemail to cancel. I just ignored it. I just showed up. I advocated, like one was I was advocating for the wife, like not being afraid to challenge people. With all due respect, Bob, because I'll ask people too. So in our financial inventory, this is actually one thing. So in the financial inventory, when we ask, do you have life insurance or anything that acts like life insurance that's transferable upon your death? Then if they say no, I say, why don't you have any life insurance?
Ooh. Okay.
So I like to know why.
Right.
Why don't you have any right now? Oh, I used to have it. Oh, it was too expensive. I had one gentleman tell me, well, it's probably because I'm kind of a tightwad and I don't ever want to spend the money on it. Perfect. Write it down. Right. So then when I get to the end, he goes, this is a perfect example. He's like, well, I need to think about it. His wife's sitting there. His wife wants the policy. You can tell the wife wants the policy. He goes, well, I'm just going to check my budget and I got to look at my numbers and stuff like that. I'm like, with all due respect, Bob, your wife is sitting here right now telling me that she needs this. When you die, she needs this $20,000. And you've told me right now that the only reason that you do not have life insurance is because you're a tightwad. So I think it's now the time, we know that you can afford it. Now is the time to stop being a tightwad and put some coverage in place for your wife. Wouldn't you agree? And I wrote him the policy.
I love it. I love it. And see, like, I'm with you. Like, I remember running appointments and I had a lady one time ask me, like, she's like, you're not going to give me a business card? I'm like, no.
Right.
And she was like, what do you mean? That's just awful. And I'm like, well, you're not a client. And she's like, well, that's a crappy way to do business, right? And I'm like, legitimately, it is if I was in any other industry. However, if your beneficiaries found my business card and they had to make that phone call to me when you didn't have coverage in place, that's unfair to me for me to receive that call because you didn't do what you needed to do.
Exactly. I literally will grab the business card out of people's hands now.
Right.
I'll send
Right.
it, so maybe if they really need it, I'll send them like a digital business card for sure, I guess. But like, I wouldn't say that. I said, you know what? I've had this happen where somebody died and they found my business card and they didn't put a policy in place because they had to think about it. So, and I don't go write my number on something else for them. Like, but you can't, like, I'm not having that again. So
Right.
they're
Right.
like, but I wasn't going to write them anyways. I really wasn't.
Exactly.
So
And that's the thing. It's like, I told a lot of people, like, last year we were lucky to go Hall of Fame, and out of the 400 we wrote, I want to say 390 of it was laydowns. And people were like, wait, what do you mean? And I'm like, because if you actually knew how to overcome the I need to think about it, every appointment's a laydown.
yeah,
Legitimately, everybody should need to think about it. Like, I don't just go make impulse purchases. I get that. But at the same time, buying a car is not buying life insurance. It serves a hobby versus my family. So I get that too. But it's, they filled out the form, they took the time out to schedule you in. Like, they should need to be able to, if you understand how to overcome that objection, it's like the easiest thing to get in the world. I tell people, it's like when I drive up to a home, there's only going to be three things that I expect. They're either not going to be home, they're going to say no when I show them, or they're going to say yes. There's only three options.
right.
So I'm just there to figure out which three are they.
Exactly. I mean,
You
I
know?
started implementing things when someone tells me, like, do I have to make a decision today? Yes, we do.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's uncomfortable to say that.
And the first time I said it and they said, oh, okay, I was like, oh my God.
Right.
I was like, all right. And even saying things like you have, like in the beginning of it, it's like you do have to think about it. Everybody always says, oh, I need to think about it. Like, I like to just
Right.
say things up front, like almost like, oh, everybody says this, everybody does this, because I'm like hurting people, right? So it's like, everybody always tells me they need to think about it, which is exactly what we have to do. So you don't even have to worry about telling me that. We just need to go ahead and, find something for you that we know that you'll feel comfortable. And if
Right.
I keep getting the no's or no's, I'll say, okay, perfect. So I just want to make sure, does the coverage feel comfortable? Do you like how much coverage is in place? And they'll go, yes. Okay. Does the cost is this feel monthly comfortable for you each month? Like if something comes up, are you going to feel comfortable with the monthly bill?
Right.
And I'm like, well, it's kind of a little high. Perfect. Let's just bring it down because I know that it's important to you. Right. Or if they say, yeah, it's fine, I'll go, okay, well, do you feel comfortable with me? Like, do you feel like that I've explained this well to you? Do you feel like I've done a good enough job so you feel comfortable with me helping your family? Because again, I'm also going to be the one that's going to help your family and help your son when I get that call that you died. Like, I'm going to be the one that's going to help them. Do you feel confident and comfortable with me? Yes, I do. Okay, perfect. So go ahead and just grab your ID and let's go ahead and submit the request. We'll even see if this is going to be an option for you, and then we'll go from there.
Right.
And I always say too, we can always make some adjustment if we need to move it up. If you want to change the draft date, we can do that. I never say, do you want to bring it down? Do you want to cancel it? I just say we can always increase it or change the draft date for you. We can make adjustments in that like 14-day window.
Right. That's awesome. Well, I don't know if anybody has any questions because we usually leave a little bit of time for Q&A, but Jessica, that's amazing. We're going to send this literally to our new agents because that's just all it is. Like new agents, what they don't understand. And this is where, lastly, if anybody has any questions, feel free to shoot it in the chat or the Q&A section. One of the things that I realized about what we do was I remember, and I don't know about you, I've never, prior to Family First Life, I've never made 20 grand a month ever. So when everybody kept talking about it, I was like beating my head against the wall because I was like, it's not that easy, right? Like I was putting all these limiting beliefs in my head of like, I've never done it. So what makes you think I can? And da, 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 da. And it was like, once we just understood the scheduling part and we just did the work, the 30 appointments, sit on 20, close 10 out of the 20. And you just did that for a month and you just picked your head up and looked at your bank statements and like, they paid me 25 grand this month.
Yeah.
And it's like the easiest thing I've ever done.
It's insane. The first time that I had over $20,000 deposited into my account, I was like, so it was my third month or so, right? And I was on a ferry because like I was driving a lot, like 5,000 miles a month in my car. like, cause my husband's in the military, so we live on the little island, but that's like not where all the leads are, right? Like, so first and foremost, you have to be comfortable to get outside of your backyard. Like, so I'm not afraid to drive. I'm not afraid to go to work, anything like that. So I was actually on a ferry and I was sitting in line in this ferry. I was kind of feeling frustrated. But then I started looking through, I was like, I'm just kind of curious what my deposits are. And I was like going through and I started adding it all up. And I'll never forget this. I called John Gavin, who has been my mentor, and I was like crying. And I was like, I had like $20,000 deposited into my account this month. And I was like so excited and so happy because I had like worked so hard and I'd been working so hard. And that was the moment when I decided to start hiring, because I knew what it did for me and I knew where I came from and I knew how much this opportunity could do for somebody else.
Right.
And I felt like it was selfish of me not to share this opportunity,
But the thing that blew me away was kind of like you. I that's how I found out. Was I was literally just sitting there and just scrolling, and then I was like, wait, they paid me what? And then like I remember my initial thought right after that was, I can do that again.
Right.
It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm so exhausted. Like if I do that again, I'm gonna die. It was like, no, that was simple. I could do that again.
Right. Exactly.
And once you take that lid off of yourself and go, yeah, this is like normal, that's when you scale to the 20, 30, 40 and above, because then you go, it's just work. So if anybody have any questions, feel free to, like I said, to shoot it out in the chat or the Q&A. But Jessica, thank you so much. You don't understand how helpful this is. And once again, I apologize for the whole mix up with the technical difficulties. But what I'll do is, once again, we'll put this on YouTube like we always do, and I'll send you the link and all that good stuff. So if you wanted to share it with your team and ours, like definitely gonna do so.
No, that sounds good. And just to kind of want to piggyback on that real fast. So I have a new agent of mine and she is the exact same way. So like she kind of was like 10,000, 14,000, like she was kind of dabbling in there. And like all I just told her was just increase your lead flow. That's all. Just go increase your lead flow. And this was her first month. She did 21,000. And she goes, I don't even feel like I really worked that much. Like I could do it again. I could do even more. I'm like, exactly. You just needed more leads and you just needed a little bit more dial time, right? You just need you need to hone in on your couple objections, right? So if you guys are having problems on the phone, I need just hone in on the objections. I need to think about it. I'm not interested. I already have it taken care of. Things like that. Those ones, they're perfect, right? And avoid over the phone appointments as much as you possibly can, right? COVID, don't be afraid of COVID. Like people give objections on that. A lot of people did perfect, no worries. I'm very heavily regulated by the state. I'll have my mask, sanitizer. We can do this out front. This will be really quickly, So.
Thank you, by the way, for everything. And we really appreciate your time. And if there's anything I can do to return the favor, please let us know. But Jessica Powers, everybody, thank you so much for jumping on and sharing all your in-home and your phone scripts. And we look forward to seeing you walk the stage this year for that red jacket. So
thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.